Hello, thank you for joining me today as I walk you through all the new features in FileCatalyst Direct version 3.8. So let's review what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to give you some general release information for this version, and then I'm going to jump right into the new features. I'll be talking about new features as are end file transfers, central improvements, load balancer, new filtering based on path, new features that we've added under the hood, and our new external file systems. As I'm going through this, I'm going to be showing you demos of different features. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. In version 3.8, we did over 40 significant fixes. We've fixed over 300 minor bugs, and we had over 1,500 code check-ins altogether. Some of the big changes we've made is we've moved from Oracle Java to OpenJDK using Amazon Corretto JRE. We've also added macOS 10.15 Catalina support. We've actually had that already in 3.7.3 build 37, but it's worth mentioning as this is a pretty big change in the way that applications install on Mac. And we've updated our extended validation code signing. So users installing our software on Windows will also have a much smoother and nicer experience. Finally, we added TLS version 1.2 support across all our products. So let's review the release notes to show you what we've added so far. As you can see here, the release notes are we only list the significant fixes and also the significant features. But what we want to tell you, the big changes that we've done, as I mentioned earlier, was the Amazon Corretto that moved to TLS version 1.2. We've added the end file streaming for multi-million file directory transfers. We added new HTML admins that now work very well over high latency networks. We've added support for our Wasabi and Dropbox extended file systems. We added support for regional buckets on Google Cloud Storage, and many other new features. As you can see, the release notes kind of cover all of that, including the bug fixes. I'll be going over this in the next little while in more detail. But all the release notes are always shipped with all the products, and you can always review them as you install the product, as well as they are available on our support side if you need to quickly find out what version has which feature. Let's jump right into the end file feature. So what were our goals with this new feature? Well, we wanted to be able to transfer unlimited number of files within a directory. So here the problem is not that the files are very large, but rather there's just a very high volume of files in the range of 1 to 20 million files in a directory. Before, the application had to run through the entire data set before it could actually transfer files. Now, we can start transfer immediately. This also lowers the memory footprint of the file transfer. It still works with all our filtering by size, by name, by date on files. The update and the ETA gets progressively known as we discover more files to transfer. We can transfer multiple files at once with multi-client. We work on both local files as well as UNC paths. We work with auto-archiving. So that means if you want to have a whole bunch of small files, you can put them all into a zip chunk and transfer sort of like a tarball that then you automatically gets unzipped on the other end, which even further speeds things up. We can quickly restart a multi-million file set. So as soon as you point us to a multi-million directory, we know in the database what was transferred, what wasn't, and we will skip the files that were already processed. And it also has to work with object storage. And this is what we noticed, that a lot of companies these days want to migrate the data to object storage or between object storages. For example, you want to migrate your data to S3 and then move your data from S3 to Azure Blob. and all of these features have to work with the object storage. So this is all what our goals were, and this is all what we achieved with nfiles. There are a few considerations before you can start using nfiles. For example, this only will work with multi-client mode. That means you have to have a minimum of 3 or 4 or 5 client connections running at the same time to achieve nfiles. You cannot do this with a single client application. So this potentially might require you to upgrade your number of concurrent connections on your server so you can actually do the nfile transfers. We've tested with a number of different configurations, options, file sets. We tested with as many files as 10 million files in a directory. And what we found the best is about 6 multi-clients, progressive turned off, and auto archive turned on. So how does it work exactly? Well, you have something called a work queue. This is number of processors. By default, this is 20,000 files. The queue grows as we detect a faster hardware capability on the system we're sending from, and then we can increase it. However, you can also increase the work queue manually by changing the system property called pending job limit. Bumping priority on individual files still works with nfiles. So as you're streaming files, you can bump up files that have already been queued up. So nfiles is not recommended with Central because we're sending such a large volume of files and Central has to keep a record for every file transferred. It will obviously bog down the database of Central to the point where it might be difficult to search for things. So we don't recommend, if you're sending more than 30, 40,000 files, we don't recommend to connect this type of nodes to Central. There's an overhead working with symlinks on Linux. So if you want the hot folder application to follow symlinks, this will slow things down quite a bit. So we don't recommend following symlinks or using symlinks for this type of transferring. Auto archiving, as I mentioned, where you can bundle a bunch of files into a smaller larger zip file and transfer a zip file and unzip it, does not work with EFS. So if you're using any object storage, I would recommend not to enabling auto archiving. Also, we don't recommend to use this with progressive transfers. Progressive transfers meaning transferring files that are still growing. This will slow things down quite a bit. It's probably better to create a subtask and hot folder that deals with growing files. Remember that every single little bell and whistle you add to the file transfer when you have multi-million file sets, it will slow things down quite a bit. It could be only adding a few milliseconds per file, but because you have 4, 5, 6 million files, this will actually add up to quite a bit of time at the end and slow down. And transfer cache and attributes have all been moved to a DB. It's a high-performance DB that can keep track of all the files that were transferred and attributes. When you upgrade from 3.7.3 to 3.8, the DB migration is automatic. You don't have to worry about it. Bumping priority on individual files works as well with nfiles. So as the files are available in the queue for transfer, you can bump those files up to speed up the transfer. With emails, we had a little bit of issues. Well, we cannot exactly list 2, 3, 4 million files in an email, as this will crash your email client. So what you can do is you can create an aggregate cap of files, and this is when the emails will be triggered. So it will, let's say, send only 2,000 files at a time as it's working through the rest. And all the filtering is based on the queue, not on a complete file set. So for example, if you set your file transfers to send largest files first, well, this is going to be only based on the queue. So whatever is to be queued up. So let's say if we have 40,000 files in the queue, it will pick the largest of the 40,000 file subset, not the full, 1, 2, 3 million set. It still allows you to do some filtering. Of course, it's not perfect. in cases where you, for example, have the largest files at the end of your set, then of course this will not be perfect, but there are other ways around it, for example, where you can create other subtasks for larger files. So because transferring 1,000,000 files would take too long in a webinar video, I'm just going to show you some screenshots here, and then I'll show you a demo of a much smaller data set, but still drives the point of what we tried to achieve here. So here's a file transfer that started at 4:14 p.m. To a directory that has slightly over 1,000,000 files. As you can see, the initial file transfer started within, I think, a few seconds. Now it's 4:14 and 55 seconds. It also ran through all the filtering at this point. So you can see file transfer is already started. It doesn't tell you exactly how many files there are yet because it doesn't know, but the file transfer is going right away. And now you can see here in my final slide, about 4 hours into the transfer, now it knows that it has over 1,000,000 files to transfer. It will show you this, it will show you the ETA, it will show you the full progress bar. And see, this took about 4.5 hours to get there. But all this time, file transfer was going. The other applications, including FileCatalyst Direct 3.7, would have to run through this entire directory before transfer commenced. Now the transfer starts right away, and we discover things as we go. So what are the highlights of this little screenshot demo here I made for you? So there was 1,023,000 files in total. It took about 11 seconds to start the transfer. That included the filtering. There was a filtering set up on this demo. Files started at 16:14:44 seconds. And it started at 16:14:55 seconds. So it's 11 seconds of delay to start the transfer. And 4 hours, 15 minutes into it, we were about 80% complete. And this is where we saw our full file set to be transferred. And there was, at that point, we already transferred 826,000 files. So, of course, this is a very short video. I cannot show you 1,000,000 files being transferred, but I can show you sort of a smaller scope of this feature by playing with 100,000 files in a Samba share. So this is one of the common problems we've seen. People want to transfer download millions of files from a Samba share via hot folder. And this is what I've configured here. So what I set up here, I set up a directory, 100,000 file directory. As you can see here, there is 102,000. There's 100,000 files within 2 folders, and this is the space it takes. And this is a directory I'm going to be downloading from my Samba share. So how I set this up, this demo up. So I created a file system, a CIFS Samba share that I've created here, and I pointed it to my Samba, my 100,000 folder Samba share. Then I went to users, and I created myself a user that points to the Samba share. So here I selected CIFS and the 100,000 files folder. And this is the directory listing. I'm not doing the directory listing here because this will take probably a couple of minutes to run a dir on this directory. I already ran it, and I showed you there's 100,000 files in here. So then I created a hot folder. I made myself a new site. I called it 100,000, and I used the 100K user. This is the 100K user I created that points to the Samba drive. And then I created my target directory where I want these files to arrive, and I made myself a task called, I actually tried also with 10K, but I know this 100K works better, so I just made 100K as well. So I made a 100K task. So as I mentioned before, what I've set up in here is I've set up multi-client with 5 clients. I did not enable auto-archival because I just want to kind of show you how this all works. And I disabled dynamic files. And I didn't enable any other special features. As soon as you start out enabling some fancier features, you'll get slowdowns. But this will give you an idea of what you can do with this feature. So if I go into my task here, I pull up the activity window. So here's my activity window for this task. I'm just going to clear this and I'm going to execute it. So as right away here, you see here streaming listing, and it shows that number of files and my transfers are already going. If I go into graph here, I can see right away, look how quickly the file transfer started. So it's already transferring files. So you'd only discovered 42,000 files so far because it is a Samba drive and it's slow, but you get an idea that it like right away started transferring files and it just is streaming the listing. Eventually it will find all the files and then will show me a proper ETA and proper information here. So all my clients, as you can see, are working on transferring data, and I can see here the logs are all working on this transfer. So once we get to the end of our file set, now we discovered a full file set, and now we're going because now we know exactly what we're doing. The file set has been sent. It will speed up a little bit at that point once the file set is fully known because it doesn't have to stream the file names. And now I have my ETA here. As you can see, it's 11 minutes or so. So it hovers right now. It's still trying to speed up and get a full bandwidth. But this is the idea. Now, if I cancel this, and I'm going to edit this task, and I'm going to show you how it would work without. I'm going to disable multi-client. As we mentioned, this end files only work with multi-client. So now I'm going to disable multi-client. And now I'm going to execute this task. And now you're going to see a very different behavior. So here comes directory listing. And see, it reads about 10,000 files at a time. And once it gets to a full file set, so still no file transfer, it only read 60,000 files so far. And eventually it will get to 100,000 and will start transferring files. So the behavior is very different. And most file transfer tools work this way, that they will first have to establish a full file set before streaming. Now we see we're applying filters, and now we're getting the sizes. So you can see it takes a while to do all of this, especially if you're going to a Samba share. So let's jump right in on to the next demo feature in 3.8, and that's central improvements. So for those that are not familiar for products, FileCatalyst Central is a management, reporting, and remote administration tool for all FileCatalyst. You can connect all types of applications, FileCatalyst applications, to Central, and then you can get full reporting, management, and alarms when things stop working. Big addition in Central is we added a new tab called Users and Groups. And we call this tab Identity and Access Management. When you log in as when you have this, now we have many different types of users in Central. We can have admin, and we can have regular users that can only administer certain parts of Central. So imagine if you connected many different nodes into your Central. Like here's my example. I connected, I have a hot folder in Europe, and I have a server in Europe, and I have a transfer agent, and then I also have a US server and a hot folder server. So all disconnected. I can now delegate through this tab right here who gets to see and do what in Central. So I could have certain users that see everything, and I have certain users that can only see parts of Central. This is the look of this panel of users and groups. As you can see, you have your users, you have your group assignments, your node assignments, and your directory services. I'll be going in the demo in a second. I just kind of want to give you an overview of what this new thing is, of this new tab. And here you can assign different nodes with either read only or write only or both to a group. And then through a group, you can assign it to a user, and then this user sees only what you want them to see. So what's identity and access management in Central? Well, it enables the creation of users and groups with designated roles. You can have an IT administrator in Europe being able to only see the European parts of your business. And you have same for any other regions of the world. You can also connect everything to LDAP-S or Secure Active Directory, and you can assign administrators default rights when they first log in. Users can then log in and see the nodes that they were assigned and either administer them or just view them as needed. Well, let's jump right into a demo of FileCatalyst Central in 3.8. So let me log in here to my Central administration console. And again, for those that are not familiar with our products, what we have here is the administration of all the nodes. So here I created a server in Europe, a transfer agent in Europe, and a hot folder, as well as I have a server and a hot folder here. So in the US. So if I want to now, I'm a main administrator, I can see everything, and I can even flip between different views. I can go, let's say, see my USA infrastructure. And this is going to just show me what I have in the US. And I can go to Europe and see my European infrastructure. Or if I want, I can just go to the world map that shows everything. So this is the basic install. As you can see here, there is a file transfer going to a FC server Europe right now, just to show you that there's some activity going on. And let's go right into the new feature. So what I'm going to go here is I'm going to click on this icon right here, users and groups. And this is the new functionality we've added in 3.8. So you have a few options here. You have the user assignments, group assignments, node assignments, and directory services. So the way it works is that you have to make a group. You have to assign the group to the nodes you wanted to use, and then you have to assign a user to use this group. So right now I have a couple of users already made. I have an EU user and a hot folder user. So this user only sees hot folders. This one will show everything in the EU. So let's go into, I'm just going to go into my hot folder user here. This is going to show me just the hot folders. So I'm going to log out here. And I'm going to log in as hot folder user. So then I'm logged in as a regular user. So all I don't get the map view anymore because I don't have access to everything. I only get to see the hot folders, both the hot folder in Europe and the hot folder in the US. I can see the alarms pertaining to only these two nodes, and I can administer these nodes as required as required and as needed for my operations. Same thing with the hot folder USA. I can connect, and now I have full alarms, remote administration, reporting, and I can make changes to configuration of these hot folders. So this is like a hot folder user. Let me show you what let's say a EU user will see. Your European user will only see. The EU user can see the server in Europe, the hot folder in Europe, and the transfer agent in Europe. So here, the user, for example, can now click on the transfer agent, expand the tab for transfer agent, and now is connecting to the transfer agent running on the European server. So now I'm actually browsing local files on that server, not my local files on my laptop. And now I can decide I can connect here. Let's say I want to connect and transfer some files back to the US. So I'm just going to establish a connection to the US server. So now I expanded my transfer agent Europe node, I connected to it, and now I can transfer files from that local machine over in Europe to my North America, my server in USA. So let me just go here to get some files. Let's pick a couple of files and transfer them over to the US. So this is how easy it is for the delegation and the user, delegating user and management and who can transfer files and where with Central. You can do it based on the nodes, based on node types, based on regions. So let's go back to the main admin account, and let's just go through an example of, let's say I have that transfer agent in Europe, and I want to make a user that is only able to access that one transfer agent in Europe. So let me just go back here and show you the map. So what I'm trying to do here is my transfer agent in Europe, and I'll create a user that can only see that one node and cannot see anything else. So I'm going to go to users and groups. And I'm going to start with my group assignment. So I'm going to make a new group. TAE Europe. I made a new group called TA Europe for transfer agent in Europe. And right now nothing's assigned to it. So I'm going to assign to it the transfer agent in Europe. There we go. And I'm going to give it read and write only because I want this user to be able to do everything with the transfer agent. And now I'm going to go to my user assignments, and I'm going to create a user called TA. Set my password for this user. And now I'm going to be able to assign this user to my TA group. So now this user TA is assigned the group TA Europe, and TA Europe has access to transfer agent in Europe, read and write. So now I'm going to sign out and log in as this user. And here you can see the user TA has only one node, which is the transfer agent node, to connect to it. So now this user can connect, they have read and write permissions, and now they can transfer files between to any other FileCatalyst server based on this TA user. So for example, here I already created a US server. I could create a connection to my European server, and I'm off to the races in transferring files. So you, as the main administrator, the main admin, can of course see everything, and the other people, part of Central, they can only administer certain parts of it. So once you're as the main administrator in Central, let's just go through some of other features we've added in 3.8. So in the Users and Groups tab, you have something called Directory Services now. So this is where you can configure Central to connect to any LDAP or LDAP-S or Active Directory or Secure Active Directory connections. So you can connect to a forest of these and then have a different assignments based on your LDAP or Active Directory settings. So this again opens up Central to be managed by multiple people and delegation of management tasks. When you're using the directory services and a brand new user logs in that has never logged into Central, you can assign automatically default set of roles for them. So for example, you could give them that they are only a read only and they can see everything, but they cannot administer anything. Or perhaps they can only administer hot folders when they log in through LDAP or Active Directory. So besides of that, some other improvements under the hood, which I'll be talking about in a minute, are like right now we're using WebSockets. So even if Central is in, let's say, Europe, and you're connecting to a node in Asia, this used to be very slow. Now with WebSockets, it's a direct communication. So the interface will be snappy, fast and snappy, regardless of where you are in the world with your nodes. We do have a few issues still with satellite and satellite connectivity with Central, which we're hoping to improve in the next release of Direct. Well, let's jump right into the next big feature, and it's FileCatalyst Load Balancer. Right now, Load Balancer is in something what we call Labs. It will be released in the next 3.8.1 release as a full production product. It's just to speed things up. We decided to make some of these products in labs to not delay the release for reasons like not having a completed documentation or completed and GUI or graphical user interfaces. So Load Balancer is in a state where it's fully usable, it's been fully tested, however it's still missing some graphical user interfaces for management, and the help is maybe not as good as it should be. But we're hoping in 3.8.1 this is going to be all addressed. So what's Load Balancer? Well, it works with all our client software, including hot folder, CLI, transfer agent, all our APIs. It does not provide synchronization between nodes. So for example, if you have 2 or 3 FileCatalyst Direct servers connected, Load Balancer will not provide you with a synchronization of these nodes. That's more clustering than load balancing. Here it is assumed that you're already maintaining the state of all the 3 servers by other means, for example, by doing scripts, sharing storage, or doing some kind of LDAP Active Directory integration where this is all possible. The current load balancer is not compatible with workflow spaces with strict security. You can use it with workflow without strict security, but you cannot use it at the moment with spaces. And FileCatalyst load balancer is not a proxy. That means that actually there's no connectivity going to it. All it is, it's more like a directory service where end clients or client applications connect, and load balancer tells it which IP address to take or which host name of the server to use, and that's it. It doesn't actually proxy any information. It doesn't manage authentications or connections. It's really just a directory service. So some of the other highlights. So load balancer does check periodically for health of the connected servers. We've created a whole new aspect of direct server called health services for this. So load balancer will check on that. And it provides two different algorithms for routing. One is round robin, so it's pure round robin. You have 2 or 3 servers. As long as they're up, they'll be evenly distributed. And then we also provide a weighted round robin. So for example, in this case, you might have a primary and a secondary server for direct servers. And in case if the direct server, one of the direct servers dies, then it fails over to the other one. In this case, then you would put weighted round robin, you would put the backup server as 0 and the primary as 100. And like this, you can then do a failover, not necessarily do a load balance per se. Let's talk about path-based filtering. So this is a new option we added in hot folder. It allows you to define your data sets either by file name or file path. So this allows you to filter now not only based on file names, but also a directory name. It's a fairly straightforward and simple feature, but actually adds a lot of flexibility to how you set up your tasks in hot folders. So, you can already make your tasks, for large files versus small files. This allows you to make another configuration option for how to filter your data and what gets to transfer and when. So here's an example. The example here I provided is actually on my other screenshot as well, is that you add this in your phrase, target, you put file path, mode include, and phrase, video production, 4K footage, star.mkv. This will result in a filter that all MKV files that exist within a 4K footage subfolders contained inside video production parent folder. So again, as you're working with different project files, you might have a common 4K folder or 2K folder or SD or graphics. You can create now tasks based on the subfolders within your project files. Again, it adds more flexibility, and it's a very nice feature to improve the file transfer experience for your end users. This section, I'd like to call it under the hood. So not necessarily going to see any graphical changes, graphical user interface changes in our application, but there's a lot of improvements that we've added that will help make your file transfer more secure, faster, and the whole user experience better. So here's what we've added to 3.8 under the hood. So we moved away from Oracle Java. As you may have known, Oracle started charging for a license fees for the Java application. The rate of updates was also very fast with Oracle. It was very hard to keep up. So we moved to OpenJDK, and especially we moved to Amazon Corretto, which is a long-term support release. Amazon has uses a lot of Java in their web services platform and online store and everything. So they actually bundled their own OpenJDK version, and they called it Corretto. So this is what we've bundled in 3.8. All direct server, central, hot folder, transfer agent, everything uses OpenJDK Corretto, Amazon Corretto from now on. Next big thing we've added is the Catalina support, macOS X 10.15 Catalina support. We've actually added it already in 3.7.3 build 37, so this is the latest 3.7.3 build. I just want to mention it here that across the board, all our applications are supported in macOS X Catalina. You don't have to do, the users will not get any extra security prompts. They will just be able to download and install it and run it because everything is now notarized by Apple. We had to notarize by Apple all our applications. This is probably the most important part of this when you're installing Transfer Agent and using Transfer Agent as part of the web file transfers, as every user will have to download that PKG file and download it and install it to run. We also did a very similar thing on Windows. We added the extended validation to all our installers. So again, there's no extra security prompts. Everything just works when you download, again, Transfer Agent hot folder server on Windows. We've added TLS 1.2 support across the board for improved security. We improved the HTML remote admins. So what I've been showing you here a lot was when I was doing N files, I was showing you the swing GUIs. When I was showing you Central, I was showing a lot of the HTML remote admins that all our products have. And now all these HTML remote admins use WebSockets, so meaning that they are actually much faster when you have latency. Before, we used to have a problem that, let's say Central was installed in New York and you were in Europe and the node was in Europe as well. So what would happen, you would connect to Central, which would give you, your 100 milliseconds delay to connect to Central in the US, and then you would triple that pretty much, because you would have 100 to Central, then another 100 to the client, and then 100 back to you. So now with WebSockets, all of this is gone. So it's actually, everything is very snappy, and the users that are actually talking to the nodes are actually talking directly through WebSockets directly to the appropriate node. We also did a lot of changes to our reverse proxy. It is much more stable now. It has much better performance. This product has gone through a big improvement and rewrite since it first appeared in our 3.7.3 builds. Let's talk about external file systems. We've put in a lot of time and effort to make the features of our external file systems better. We find that lately, a lot of customers come to us with problems such as, I need to move a lot of data to S3 object storage, or I need to move data from S3 to Azure Blob, or from Azure Blob to Google Cloud Services. So what we try to do with external services is provide this ability for our users to easily migrate data between their local on-prem systems and storages to object storage. So for those that are not familiar what EFS is, it means external file systems, and it allows you to mount file systems that are not physically on the machine that runs FileCatalyst Direct server or hot folder or transfer agent, but are more virtual, are web-based or cloud-based. So we have support, for example, for S3. We have support for Azure Blob, Google Clouds, Backblaze, B2, OpenStack. What we've done in 3.8, we improved performance on all of those. So now we do nightly tests with 200 gig file transfers, so very large files. And we also improve the performance for those that need to move thousands of smaller files to an object storage. Once again, those are not as, the file systems for object storage are not as quick as local file systems. So there's an extra care that needs to be done to make sure that those large files or thousands of small files can land safely there. We also upgraded our SMB driver. So we have another file system that we've created as for Samba shares. And that's what I was showing you with the N files when I was trying to transfer 100,000 files from a Samba share. We added support for Wasabi And we also added supported for Dropbox, which is right now going to be under labs, but again in 3.8.1 we're gonna productify it and make sure that it's part of the main distribution. So again, with Dropbox, we're going to have another webinar on this. I encourage you to find it and watch it if you're a Dropbox user and you need to start moving larger files into your Dropbox. This is what this driver is for. We also added a new type of a file system called encrypted file system. So again, this one doesn't have to do anything with object storages, but it is a file system where you can, all the data that is saved into that file system is actually encrypted. And you generated the encryption key, and once the key is generated, all the data in that file system is encrypted with this key. All you see in the real, if you just browse this file system with your local Windows Explorer, you'll see file names will make sense, extensions will make sense, but then when you double click on any file, none of them will work. They'll be all corrupt because you'll need that encryption key to decrypt these files. So this is added. So again, if you need to do encryption at rest, don't lose that encryption key. If you lose it, you lose all your data, and we cannot help you. Another thing that is worth mentioning is that post-upload script execution doesn't work with encrypted file systems if you need to get to the data. If, however, for example, you just need to have a script that, for example, updates your database that a file transfer is done, then it's fine. But if you do need the data, there's no way to get to the data once it has been encrypted with the file system. So that pretty much concludes my demos for 3.8 launch. You can always go to our website and go to the download site to get it. 3.8 has been available for early beta adopters since November, I think, last year. So it's gone through a lot of testing and a lot of validation from our existing clients and our early adopter clients. If you are interested to be an early adopter, let us know, and we will provide you the download links to our beta programs in the future. So what's next? Where are we going after 3.8? Well, the big change you're gonna see is that we're moving to an agile development cycle, meaning that we're gonna have releases more frequently, but they will be much smaller. It will be not like what we have right now, where we release 10, 15 new features with 300 bug fixes. It's not, but you have to wait a while for it. The new cycle we're aiming at 3-4 month release cycle with smaller features and just a lot more releases coming out. So that means if someone has a bug or someone has a new feature, they don't have to wait too long to get it. Some other things we'll be looking at improving is our file areas and workflow spaces and our Express application. Right now it requires transfer agents to do anything. We want to get rid of that transfer agent requirement. So transfer agent will be only used for transferring data in and out of file areas, but all the browsing, renaming, file sharing will be done without the transfer agent, which will make these applications a lot easier for non-technical users. And we're looking into improving our performance of Central. And the reason we're doing this is that once we did the end files and we started transferring 300, 400, 1 million files, 2 million files with our direct products, our hot folder, we noticed Central wasn't able to keep up with that scale, that volume of transactions. So we're looking at improving in upcoming release the scalability of Central. And of course, get the load balancer and our Dropbox driver out of the labs. So this is sort of a very short roadmap. Of course, there's a lot more stuff we can discuss, but that will give you, this kind of gives you an idea where we're going. So if you haven't used our products yet and you're just stumbled on this webinar by looking at our website, I encourage you to request a trial, and we can provide you a free trial of all our products, both Direct, Central, Workflow Spaces. We will be updating to 3.8 all our marketplace listings So that will be coming in the near future, where your AWS and Azure Marketplace will be running 3.8. Right now it's still running 3.7.3, but will be coming shortly. And if you have any information or you want to do a trial, just go to FileCatalyst.com/trial. I also wanted to mention that we do have a monthly newsletter where we send out webinar notices, tips and tricks, case studies, new product launches, upcoming virtual events. That's a big one now, as I don't think we'll be doing a lot of trade shows in the upcoming months due to the virus crisis. So I encourage you very much to stay connected with us and go to FileCatalyst.com/FileCatalyst-newsletters, and you can register right there for your monthly newsletter from us. So that concludes my 3.8 webinar. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. I hope you'll find millions and millions of files to transfer, and you will consider us for your next big project. Thank you very much, and talk to you soon.